Hi FLOSSTUBE, welcome to my channel Stitching in South Jersey. My name is Debbie and today is Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026, and this is FLOSSTUBE number 20, May, June, and July stitching update. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for waiting. I wasn't sure I was going to get this done today, and I'm kind of trying to get it done in a hurry. But been a minute. I don't think I've ever not filmed since I started filming. I don't think I've ever gone this long without filming. I think my last FLOSSTUBE was my April stitching update, and I think I filmed it somewhere 20th of May, 20-something of May. So it's been 2 months. So I apologize, but there is a reason for it. And the reason for it is I had 2 projects that I needed to start and finish. One was patriotic, so I needed to work on that in June. And the other one, I just needed to get off of my list of things to do. So it would have been a really boring FLOSSTUBE. This one may be boring too. There's not that many whips. But I do have those 2 starts and finishes to show you. So hope you're all well. Hope you're beating the heat. It has been here in southern New Jersey. Brutal. Really bad. Even for me. And I love the heat. And me and my tomatoes are not feeling it. We're really kind of over it. We're wilting and we're not feeling it anymore. Every day my tomatoes look like they just want to pack up and move to the Arctic. And the peppers are only doing slightly better. So they probably just want to move to one of the Dakotas. They probably don't need to go any further than that. But nobody wants to be in New Jersey right now. That's all I'm saying. So thank you for everyone that keeps coming back to watch and likes and subscribes and comments. I read each and every comment. I respond when a response is appropriate, and I really do appreciate you. And that's why I'm trying to fit this in before Joey Forget About It gets home, or before the sun reaches through my sliding doors and I'm suddenly in full sunlight, and nobody really wants to see that. It's like, you know, turning on the lights. If you have those old lights in your bathroom that are the bulbs over the mirror, nobody wants to see that at 6 a.m., right? I don't care how young you are or anything. So anyway, so on the agenda today, I have 4 whips from essentially the end of May, all of June, and up to this moment in July. In fact, one of them is still on my lap stand, and I'm not taking it off. I just started working on it today, but I don't want to wait any longer to film this. And it's my second least favorite project, so probably after today I'll put it back. So I'll show you my 2 starts and finishes. We will talk about plans. We will talk about who I'm watching. We will talk about It's the Little Things. Book talk. I've read a lot of books, or listened to. And if you watched my last FLOSSTUBE, I had just embarked on this step bet challenge, which I completed and got my $40 bet back plus 75 cents. I'm like, really? Everybody stayed in this thing? Anyway, a lot of walking, lot of walking. I was averaging about 50 miles a week. I think my lowest was 48, my highest was 53. So it's a lot of walking. So there are a lot of audiobooks getting listened to. We'll talk about binge talk, and then if all goes well, I will do another segment of my stitching crime, my true crime story at the end of this, which I filmed weeks ago. So if I can remember how to attach it to the end, I will do so. And if you're not interested in that and only in the stitching portion, the cross stitch portion, I will let you know when it's over. Okay, so 5 minutes in, let's get rolling. So 4 whips, like I said, which I did not really start. I think I started them and then kind of put them aside to do the starts and finishes. So I don't know, and you don't care whether I did them in June or I did them in July or I did them the end of May. It makes no difference. But here they are in the order that I did them. Autumn Town, nice glare, by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I'm stitching this on 18 count antique green Devosa by Zweigart. We all know Devosa, not a fan, but the color's really nice. And I started this on October 21st of 2022. And here's where I got this time around. So I think last time it came up, I finished the roofs on this page. And this time I did, you can't really tell because it's kind of an ecru color, but I did all of that, and this was fun. I did this tree. I'm not doing this tree. I'm doing this in DMC 4130. The called for color is, hold please, I can tell you. 740, which is orange, but it's a little bright. It's a little bright orange, and I definitely wanted the fall colors, although I would argue that this has a little bit of pink in it, the 4130, so I'm not sure, but that's what it is. And not every tree needs to be the same orange, so I will continue the search. Ironically, I was in Michael's the other day, or week, when I was working on this. I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to pick up a different orange for this, which I did, which ended up being DMC 4130. So great minds think alike, and the same mind continues to think the same. So it was actually a good thing because I did need to open the second one, so that's fine. But see, it's got a little pink in it. I mean, I guess it's better than that bright orange, because I love the yellows, I love the reds, I love the greens, and then there was this orange. So anyway, so I got that done. That felt a little bit like an accomplishment to me, to work on something. You know when you're doing something and you need to get it done, and all of a sudden the joy is sucked out of it and you're just like working through, sort of like when I taught aerobics. I used to be a big aerobics girl in the 80s, and then when I was about 21, they asked me to teach. They asked me to, take the classes, blah, blah, blah. So I taught. I hated it. I loved taking my aerobics classes, and obviously I was there all the time, and that's why they asked me to teach. I knew the routines, because back then they were the same routines. Every teacher learned the same routines. Once I started teaching it, I hated it. And that's the way I feel a little bit about when I'm forced to cross-stitch something. I don't love being under that kind of pressure to do something that's supposed to be fun. But I was kind of under a time crunch, 250th, semi-quintennial, whatever that is, 250th, so I needed to get it done. Okay, moving on. Next, Amid Amish Life. This was in, I want to say it's the Better Homes and Gardens. I think it is. Magazine. Not magazine, book. 101 Best Loved Designs by Better Homes and Gardens. This is just the first one. It's a triptych, and they're in 3, but I'm doing them all as one instead of as the, let's just see. I know I have them all, so let me just show you what it looks like. I think I have a picture. They show a picture of them all. No, they don't. They show them all kind of separate. Anyway, I'm doing them all as one, which will get tricky when I get to the end of this one, because obviously it's meant to be a standalone. but it's fun, and I'm out of blue sky, and I'm out of most of that green stuff, so I was kind of having some fun with it. And this is where I got to. Stitching this on 18 count Celestine by Fiber on a Whim. Love Fiber on a Whim fabric. It is just the best. I started this March 11th of 2024. And this is where I've gotten to, which I don't think is the bottom of the page, but maybe it is. I don't think it is. I think it's just like a really good stopping point. So I got all this filled in, and there was some, all this was not done yet, and then this back to the green. But I love the way it's coming along, and even without the back stitching, it's pretty good. And I'm not doing, there is blue sky. Not doing the blue sky. Nope. That's why I picked this beautiful blue, and it's showing up pretty true, from Fiber on a Whim, because there's no need to stitch blue sky if you can stitch on blue fabric. So that was fun. I enjoyed doing something that to me is a little more challenging because it's such a big project. Next was Early Americans by Little House Needleworks, stitched on 14 count Sandcastle. I started this right at the beginning of COVID, March 29th of 2020, which actually would have been my dad's birthday. He would have been 92 if he had still been alive on March 29th of 2020. And it is the Nathan Hale block. And I completed it. And it's on a scroller, so. And this was fun. So the next block is going to be, I don't know if you're familiar with the 9. There are 9 of these. And I think it's like the big flower pot thing in the middle. But I finished the Nathan Hale block. Last time, I even remember saying this to you guys. Boy, that Nathan Hale's house is big. It was big. But then it didn't really leave me that much to do. I had to do little Nathan himself. This. And then just this, which really only took, I think I worked on it for 4 days continuously. And so that was fun. So now I get to move on, and that really does feel like an accomplishment. It's like a little mini win. And then my second to least favorite project is When Cardinals Appear by Blackberry Lane. And I'm doing this one. It says When Cardinals Appear, a loved one is near, or something along those lines. God, do I hate this project. I really do. I mean, I don't even know why. Part of it could be that, so it's stitched on 28 count Dwarf Lugana by Picture This Plus. It's beautiful color. I started this March 28th of 2021, and this is all I've gotten done because I literally can't stand to work on it. And I don't really know why. 28 count makes me move a little slower than like an Ada would. And then up in here were all these weird little snowflakes that I have since pulled out. But there's kind of still, like in here, there's not that far to go. But then there's all the wording and I don't know. But I'm on the branches. I'm on the tree branches that the little cardinal's sitting on. And honestly, it really is pretty. I mean, the attention to detail. So no shade at Blackberry Lane. It's just not a favorite of mine to work on. And I can't even tell you why. I wish I could because I've been trying to pinpoint it. Okay, so now the 2 starts and finishes. First one is USA Tier by Erin Elizabeth. I stitched it on 18 count Oracle by Picture This Plus. And I bought the fabric and the pattern months before, probably bought it in January. But my plan was to start stitching it in June, and I did. I started it on June 1st, and I completed it on June 14th. That does not mean, and then I fully finished it probably that week as well. Doesn't mean I stitched 14 continuous days. I did not. And here it is. I used called for colors because I'm very careful now because I'm doing several projects that use red, white, and blue. Twin Peak Primitives, Honest Abe is one. Um, there's just a few. No, the First Thanksgiving, that's the one. Um, and sometimes the reds are like a little orangey red. This was not. This red, white, and blue went really, really well together. And it's a shame. I just went to the nail salon. I had on my nails a red, white, and blue design that I really loved. I found it on Instagram, and the girl that does my nails was able to duplicate it pretty much exactly. I loved it. Literally no one noticed it. I don't know if it was because the red and the blue were like not bright red and bright blue, because I like the more colonial kind of muted colors. I don't know why, but anyway. So the only change I actually made was right here. I think it said 4th or something. I don't have the cover with me. I changed it to 250. And that is the only change I made. Then I bought a frame at Michael's, I guess, and I have a lot of mats. And it was funny because it really does change. I mean, I'm sure you all know this. Anybody that does any kind of crafts probably is aware of how colors change other colors. And it totally did. I had a really nice red mat as well. And I also had a blue frame. So I had a white frame and a blue frame. The blue frame I did not like at all. And it was kind of like this color, maybe a little brighter, but not bad. Just, I don't know. So then I switched to the white frame, and I had both the blue and the red mat. And it was amazing how different this same exact design looked with those two different mats. And the reason I went with this one was simply because I thought it gave it more elegance than the red. The red maybe gave it more pop, but I thought the blue gave it a little bit more stateliness. And Joey Forget About It also liked the blue. So I could have gone with either one. But it's hanging between my back door if you walk in my back door, because we had a lot of people over 4th of July weekend, most staying here, and many just in and out. And a few people noticed this. It was hanging right as soon as you come in the back door. There's a little wall there between my kitchen and my laundry room, and that's where I hung it. And I framed it myself, and goodness gracious, I think the girl might have gotten one level for a change. First try, no problem. I don't know. The stitching, framing gods were with me for sure. So that was that. So it was 14 days, but not really 14 days. 14 days that it was on my lap stand, not necessarily working on it. 14 continuous days. And the next one is Baby Shoes by Art. I know I got it from Artisy. I don't know if there's who the designer is. I actually made this same one for my grandson, and they were blue baby shoes. And I thought, well, I could buy the pink pattern, or I could just go in my stash of colors and pick out, like kind of convert the blues to pinks, which I did, which worked out fine. However, a couple things. I stitched this on 18 count earthen by Picture This Plus. I think I stitched my grandson's on white. So it was white, which I also didn't love because the shoes are blue and white. So I didn't love that. And I said, I'm not making that mistake again. But rather than wait for the perfect fabric to be ordered and delivered, I decided to use earthen by Picture This Plus. It's kind of a dusty, dirty looking rose, so I don't love this, but I also didn't put, for him, I put his first and middle name, his birth date, and his weight. And for this one, I just put her first name and her birth date. I was really done. I apologized to my son and daughter-in-law, and they were like, no, no problem. So this is not fully finished because I, in fact, just found the fabric. So I went to Michael's to get the fabric. Michael's is having an identity crisis. They think they want to be Joann's, but they also want to be like an at-home, and they want to be a lot of things, which means that they have a little bit of everything and not much of anything. So their fabric selection, awful. We don't even need to get into their cross-stitch selection, although they do tend to have all the DMC colors. Their yarn selection, because I'm also a crocheter, not great. Like, your store is simply not big enough to do it all. So either lease another building and do it all, or pick what you want to be and maybe ditch the whole like Pier 1 home goods at home vibe, because unless you can afford to sell that stuff cheap because you're buying enough of it, you know, whatever. Anyway, so I couldn't buy fabric there. So today when I had to go get my nails done, Hobby Lobby, which I don't love, is in the same shopping center. So I ran in and I did find something. And ultimately I ended up having to go with a very muted fabric because bright pink just made this fabric look dirty and white didn't really work. Anyway, a long story short, here she is. This is baby shoes. Oh, and I also didn't backstitch it. There is backstitch, like those laces are backstitched to within an inch of their life. Not doing that. Just it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Started this June 14th, the day I finished the USA tier, and I finished this July 9th. Again, not working continuously, but there is a lot of stitching in these little baby shoes and several color changes. So there's several grays, and I had to be really careful and intentional. So the grays I kept because that was more related to the white, but the pinks, there's probably 6 or 7 pinks in there, and I had to be really careful that they didn't clash with each other. But you see what I mean? This is kind of like a dirty, dusty rose, and it's fine, and it doesn't matter. And if it mattered, I would have started it over, or at the very least backstitched it, or at the very least put her weight and her middle name. It didn't matter that much, but she matters, and I did it, and that was what was important. But so now the next time I come back, I will show you the fully finished. I'm going to put it on a board, like a white board, and I'll matte fabric behind it, just like I did for my grandsons. And, you know, it's second child syndrome, which is what I said to my son and daughter-in-law. I said, when my son, the father of these 2 babies, was born, he was my first. I said I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning sterilizing the bottles. It was 1990, you know, they're in the boiling water. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm awake sterilizing bottles. When my second child was born, my younger son, I was washing those things so thoroughly, no longer sterilizing, but hot water and soapy water. Then I had to make sure I got all the soap out, and then when my third child was born, my daughter, I literally kind of like spit cleaned them and, you know, whatever. And when her pacifiers fell on the ground, I picked them up, I licked them, and I put them back in her mouth. So that's what happens, right? Like, you have, maybe not for everybody, but I feel like a lot of people say, you know, the first kid, you're like, you want to bubble wrap them. And by the time you get to the third kid, you're like, has anybody seen recently, like today? You know, just kidding. But you know what I mean. So they understand where I'm coming from with this. The first, and here's the other thing, to be fair. With my grandson, I started it 3 months before he was born. So I took my time. With my granddaughter, as you all know, if you've been watching, we had a lot of problems. And we were never really sure, that everything was going to be okay. And I'm all Italian and I'm very superstitious. So I did not start it until long after she was born and out of the NICU and the whole thing. So it was a little bit of a rush job, but I was not going to tempt the fates, right? I was not starting anything until we were in the clear. So, okay. So now, who I'm watching, I honestly can't tell you. I think it's been since January or February since I've watched the FLOSSTUBE. And I hate to say that, but part of the reason for that is because I'm in the midst of this contact lens fight with my eyes, and I keep trying different lenses. And the truth is, because I stitch and my iPad is on a table near where I'm, like right where I'm sitting, but if I'm not wearing the right lenses, I can't see it clearly. So I prefer to have something I don't need to keep looking at, which obviously a floss tube, you have to keep looking up every time they show you something. And I can't really see it that clear. So I've just been doing something I could kind of just hear and I don't have to stare at the screen. So that's why. And hopefully someday soon, my eye doctor and I will come to some agreeable resolution for my failing eyes. So I do watch a lot of true crime YouTubers, Crime Junkie, Bella Fury. I tell you all this all the time. There's several of them that I watch. I also watch historical stuff on YouTube. A lot of times, there's podcasts that have history. Well, now those people put it on YouTube because now they're on camera. They're not just on your, whatever, your podcast app, like your iPhone app. So, the other thing I do now is there is a YouTuber and her name is Cheer Denise, and she does a bunch of things, but I don't get into the whole what's going on in the world this week. She does a bunch of stuff, but one of the things she does is reads books to you. So she's currently reading, no, it's not current. It's, who knows, it could have been 2 years ago or 3 years ago. A book based on Ethel Kennedy. I found her when I was listening to something about JFK Jr. And then she read the book Ask Not, which was about all of the Kennedy women. Ethel was not included except for maybe 2 sentences in that book. And so now she found, dating back, I believe, to the 80s or the 90s, a book by, I think his name is Joel Oppenheimer. And it's a really comprehensive book on Ethel Kennedy from her childhood through to, I don't know, because I'm not done yet. And it's very interesting. It's very disturbing. As you know, with the Kennedys, there are a lot of low lows. So, but she reads it. So while I can see her on screen, just like you're looking at me right now, I don't have to look at her. And it's fine. That's been working out good. So that's who I'm watching. Plans. My only plans are to get back into my Tiny Decisions rotation, and I am about to reset the wheel. When I finish When Cardinals Appear, which will probably be tonight, I'll just be done with it for the rotation, and so I could start fresh. I will be spinning the Tiny Decisions wheel, but I was at the end of it, so I need to reset it, which is always exciting because there's so many options. Although it's weird. Random... Is anything random anymore, really? I mean, probably just what I'm saying now is going to, like, somehow appear in my feed somewhere, like, weird things, right? Like, you go on Amazon and you look at a bookshelf, and then you're on YouTube listening to something, and all they do is talk about all the ads you get in between what you're watching is all about bookshelves, floating bookshelves, wall-mounted, corner cabinets. Weird. True story. That actually happened. Okay. Next, it's the little things. So I think the one that goes without saying is air conditioning. Oh boy, air conditioning. And let me tell you, when there are 20 people in your house for a barbecue, none of whom want to go outside because it's 103, so only the host and hostess are outside cooking and making sure anyone that is out there has what they need. The air finds it hard to keep up. A lot of 98-degree bodies with an air conditioner. If my daughter said to me one more time, Mom, are you sure there's nothing wrong with your air? I think I was going to hit her with something. I'm like, yeah, you're what's wrong with my air. All of you are what's wrong with my air. The air is fine. It's overworked. So anyway, so that goes without saying, but I do have another one. We have a couple little short, like over the long weekend getaways to look forward to. And Joey, forget about it, isn't a real big fan of taking time off from work. And not because his boss or the owner of the company or whatever has any problem with it. It's just him. I've given up fighting with him over it. But we do have a couple of things that we're going to do. One of them is the beginning of August, we're going to be going to the Finger Lakes, one of our favorite places. That is in New York. And it's like wine country in New York. They are lakes that look like fingers. There's like 5 of them, or I think there's 7 of them actually. And there's wineries all around these lakes, dotted around the lakes. And when we started going about 12 years ago, it was really only wineries. Now it's breweries and distilleries and this and that. And there's this cheese place up there that I could live on cheese, and their cheese is amazing. So we're doing that at the beginning of August. So, and we have a few other little things planned. So that'll be fun, just to get away for a little while. And if you happen to be a real estate agent out there, you'll understand when I say this. If a realtor needs to get busy and needs work, take a vacation. Your phone will ring, 100% guaranteed, while you're away. And you'll be dealing with things while you're on vacation. So I'm geared up. I'm ready. So call me. Got a house to sell. Okay, book talk. So, like I said, in my stepbed 50-plus mile journeys, which, by the way, if you're keeping track of those journeys, I think I lost a total of 1/4 pound. Right? Doesn't seem fair, but that's true. And as my Weight Watchers coach so eloquently puts it, you can't outrun your fork. Also true. So maybe a little less fun on weekends, and I can hold it together during the week. Anyway, so on my walks, actually this first one I read in book form. It's called The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, and this is a new one. I think it's sometime in 2026. The premise of this is a woman killed her husband, and now she's in like a mental hospital, and she won't speak. They can't get her to speak. So this young therapist is like, I'm going to reach out to her. I'm going to get her to speak. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. They said she 100% killed her husband, but they can't put her in jail because she is not well. So it's pretty good. It's a little long. Probably could have done it in less pages, but it's pretty good with a couple of big twists at the end. So I do recommend it, and I did read that in book form. Next was The Perfect Plan by Caitlin Weaver, and I listened to this in an audiobook, and this is about a surrogate, a woman who agrees to carry a baby for her friend couple because the friend can't get pregnant, and it's all about that. It's not really a mystery. It's kind of just a story. And I listened to that on audio, and it actually was very good. The Note by Alifair Burke, who, by the way, is a woman. Alifair is a woman. Didn't know it until I looked at the back of the book jacket. anything by Alifair Burke is right in my wheelhouse. She writes very good books. She used to write, I think she got her start, and I could be wrong, writing with, I believe it was Mary Higgins Clark. I don't think it was James Patterson. I can't remember, but she was like almost like a co-author, and I imagine they wrote like different chapters in different voices. Whoever it was, I remember distinctly. I feel like it was Mary Higgins Clark. Maybe not. Not a big fan of Mary Higgins Clark. I feel like she should be a young adult author. Anyway, this is about three friends that have been friends for many years and lose touch and start to like reform this friendship, and they decide to take this girls' weekend in the Hamptons, and they play this childish prank by putting a note on someone's car, and it goes horribly wrong, and that is what the book is about. So I read that in book form as well. Very fast read, very short chapters. You know, you can get through it pretty quickly. It's Not Her by Mary Kubica, another very good author. This I listened to on audio, and it follows a woman who is on a family vacation with her husband and daughter and her brother and his wife and his son and daughter. And the brother and the wife get murdered. That's how the book opens. So you don't know anything before you know that. So I'm not giving anything away. And the son and the daughter do not get murdered. Two daughters. So like a little daughter, the brother that gets murdered has two daughters and a son, and the little daughter was at a sleepover at this woman who is the voice of the book. So she wasn't in the house. The son was there, but said he slept through it, and the daughter is missing. And so this woman is trying to find her niece and, you know, all the people she meets. It was almost like it was a resort, but it was very rustic and very off the grid kind of thing. So that's what it was about. That was pretty good. That held my interest. Next is It's Always the Husband by C.L. Taylor. And this follows Jude, who is a single mom. She is the voice. She's a single mom, and she kind of navigates this suburban life in this little Stepford wife town, and these women's personalities. And she ends up meeting and hooking up with one of the single dads. His daughter and her daughter are friends. And this dad has had not one, but two. First a wife passed away, and then his partner went missing. And everyone in town knows all of this, and this story kind of takes off from there. And that was also very good. And I think there was one more. Let me look on my phone because I just finished it. Yeah. Called The Mad Wife by Megan Church. And this follows a 1950s housewife who is trying to fit into the Jell-O mold of what a 1950s housewife should be, and told from her point of view, her voice, and all of the things that happen. And, you know, she kind of gets a little unhinged, and she starts like suspecting dark secrets of one of the neighbors and all of that. It was also pretty interesting, especially towards the end. Kind of a long one. I think it was like 11 hours or something, but moved pretty quickly. It probably didn't take me more than a few days to get through that one. So that's all the book talk. And I have joined another. I'm in the third week of another. It's called Sizzling Summer Steps or something. Another step bet app challenge. and I'm in the third week of 6. And so I will probably have a lot of interesting books to recommend next time too. So when I want to walk leisurely, I listen to an audiobook. If I am trying to get my speed up a little bit, I listen to music. So it's weird how that makes a difference, but it 100% makes a difference. So, okay, binge talk. So technically, I'm only saying this because we actually started it last week. I probably should have saved it for the next FLOSSTUBE, but True Detective Night Country. This came really highly recommended. True Detective, every season is a totally different story with a totally different cast. And this one stars Jodie Foster. She is the chief of police in a town called Ennis, and it is in Alaska, and they say it's at the end of the world. And the premise of this series is there is a research lab there in the tundra of Alaska, and everyone there goes missing. And then they find them frozen in the snow, like 6 of them or however many. And that is the premise of the story. But what they're finding is it links to a different murder from like 5 years ago. So that's really like, it all belongs together, and it's very interesting. And of course, Jodie Foster is amazing. But I will tell you this. So, need I mention again how hot it has been in New Jersey? But since we started watching this, and we only watch like 1 episode a night, by the time we finish dinner and sit down, both Joey Forget About It and I go to bed cold. And it's not cold. And the house isn't cold. I mean, the air is running and it's cool, but outside it's sweltering, even at night. And yet we're going to bed cold because that's what your mind does to you, right? You watch a 90-minute episode of something or whatever, and your mind starts to buy into it. I mean, this True Detective Night Country, the cold and the snow and the area and all of that is so, it's almost like it's its own character. It's very atmospheric, and it's almost like, and it's not, Hallmark, let's throw a white blanket over a bush in Los Angeles and let's call it Vermont. It's not that, because Hallmark should be ashamed of themselves. Either film it someplace cold or just don't. But, between the blazing sun that you could see that it's California or Georgia or wherever, and the $3 white blanket that you tossed over a bush and to make it look like the bush is blanketed with snow. Come on. But this, I believe it's partially filmed in Iceland, cold, and it's December, so it's night. It's all night. I guess they have whatever, there's 6 months a night, they call it the long night, whatever. Literally an integral part of the story, but so much so that we go to bed at night and we're cold. It's the weirdest thing. The brain is an amazing thing, right? But so are the storytellers in this binge that I'm doing, because, I watch a lot of things. I don't necessarily feel like because it was filmed on a beach, I'm suddenly in Jamaica, right? Like, I don't feel that. So I don't know what it is, but interesting. And it's not just me. Joey Forget About It too. Both of us. In fact, last night he put socks on when we were watching it. He put socks on because he was in bare feet, but he put socks on. So it's not just me. Otherwise, you'd say, well, tracks, right? Okay, so that's the end of the FLOSSTUBE. So my Stitch in Crime, my true crime story if it all goes right and all the editing gods are shining upon me, as soon as I say goodbye here, you will see me in a different setting, in a different outfit, telling you a story. So if you're not interested, this is the place for you to stop watching. Thank you, and I will see you next month. I promise I will be back this time in August. But if you are interested, this unsolved mystery, disappearance, because we can't say that the victim is dead because he has never been found. And it takes place at the Jersey Shore, Cape May County, so the very, very bottom of the state. And it is still to this day unsolved, and they still to this day don't really have like a suspect. It's not like they have suspects. I mean, they probably have a few people that maybe they're not telling anybody, or somebody's name keeps coming up. But they really, really think that it was just all the odd circumstances that went into this day, and that it really was a crime of circumstance, like very random and very, if all of these things had not happened on this day, then this crime would not have happened. And a very dedicated mother determined to find out the truth no matter what. But just not a lot of clues and not a lot of information. So that'll be next. And so that's it for me. 47 minutes. Woo! That was a lot. Okay, so I will see you, I promise, with another floss tube with many more whips. Sorry that this one was probably a little boring. But I'll be back to my normal stitching, probably 8 or 9 whips. And I will see you then. And like I said, if the editing gods go right, you're about to hear a true crime story. See you soon. Bye-bye. Hi, Floss Tube. Welcome to my channel, Stitching in South Jersey. My name is Debbie, and today is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. So happy belated 4th of July, 250th birthday of the United States of America, if you're celebrating. And hopefully all of you Americans are celebrating. So this, if you're seeing me right now, you've already seen my floss tube episode. This is my add-on, which is a true crime story from my state, New Jersey. And my first episode last month, 2 months ago, actually, received positive feedback. So I thought I would bring you another one. And this is probably a fairly well-known nationally story. It received a lot of coverage. I recall it from when it happened, and I certainly believe I've seen it on various true crime shows, podcasts, whatever. But since it happened in New Jersey, and since it happened not really that far from me, I thought I would bring you the story of the disappearance of Mark Joseph Heimbaugh. He was 11 years old when he vanished from his neighborhood in Cape May County. I believe Delhaven was the name of the town. And this happened on November 25th, 1991. At this moment in time, this case is still unsolved and very perplexing and open. It is not closed. It is open. I don't know if it's being actively investigated. From everything I've read, the theory was then and is now that someone knows something, someone saw something. It would have almost been impossible not to, and maybe you didn't even know what you saw. But he is, of course, most likely presumed dead, although some people have a different theory. So we'll get into all of that. But first, let's start with who was Mark Joseph Heimbaugh. He was a sixth grader in Delhaven, New Jersey, and he had bright red hair, blue eyes, and if you hear me say that, you probably immediately get a picture of him because there were a lot of pictures of him all over television, and even to this day it seems like there's a couple of pictures, maybe it was his last class photo or whatever. Red hair, blue eyes, and he was said to have a curious personality, and that he was nicknamed Curious George because of that personality. He also was known to suffer with obsessive compulsive tendencies, and he was receiving counseling for that and also was believed to be on medication. He lived with his mother and his older brother. His parents were separated, and his mother, Maureen, was his primary caregiver. So that is where we stand on November 25th, 1991. He also is described as friendly, which I have that written in my notes, which could probably, sometimes the friendly kids, that's the problem, right? They're trusting and they're friendly, and they will talk to people and not know that people are bad people. So, the parents were separated, but the parents were neither the mother nor the father were ever considered suspects. So let's just get that out there right now, because that does happen, right? So let's go through a timeline of November 21st. And I'm going to be looking down because I want to get this timeline exactly right. This is the timeline established by police. Around 3 o'clock p.m., a brush fire broke out in a nearby marshland. Firefighters and police responded to that brush fire. Traffic had to be diverted through Mark's neighborhood, which was typically a very quiet neighborhood and did not have this kind of traffic normally. So unfamiliar vehicles are on these quiet little streets in his neighborhood, and that is not typical for what would be happening, but they had to block, I guess, the main road off. Shortly after 3 p.m., a neighbor asked Maureen to drive her to pick up a repaired vehicle. So the vehicle was not far away, but because of the traffic circumstances and the road closures, the trip took about 40 minutes, which was unusually long. Had this not happened, it would have only been a few minutes. Mark asked to stay behind, of course, as any 11-year-old boy would. There was a fire, and there were firefighters and police, and there was excitement in the neighborhood. So he asked if he could, and Maureen, his mom, agreed because she did not expect to be gone long. Remember, she couldn't have known how long that was going to take because of the traffic detours. So now we're up to approximately somewhere between 3:15 and 4 p.m. Several witnesses reported, yes, Mark was there watching the fire. They saw him. And then they later reported seeing him walking back towards his own neighborhood. One witness observed him near the entrance of a neighborhood park. And another report suggested he may have spoken with someone in a small white or gray vehicle, although investigators could not confirm the sighting. So then, about 40 minutes after this, Maureen finally gets home and Mark is gone. So by that evening, hundreds of volunteers, police, firefighters, K-9, Coast Guard. Everyone is searching the area. Remember, this is Cape May County. This is right near the water. If you're wondering why the Coast Guard would be involved, that's why. I don't know if he lived maybe near the bay. I probably should have looked that up, but I didn't. Where Delhaven is. And they found no evidence at all of Mark except one of his LA Gear sneakers was found 75 yards from his home. And this does say near the Delaware Bay shoreline. So, okay, he was on the bay side. And if you know anything, little geography lesson, you know, I love my geography that I'm terrible at. But a lot of our shorelines in southern New Jersey have a bay side and an Atlantic Ocean side because they're skinny and they're narrow. And if you look at the state, the way the state really narrows, especially as you get to Cape May, it is not far from bay to, we call it bay to beach or bay to shore, but it's actually the Atlantic Ocean. So he was on the bay side. So this search, you know, it's helicopters, search dogs, fire departments, police, other than the sneakers. And I have, oh yeah, it does say one. I was going to say, I believe only one sneaker was found. Very strange. Very strange. One sneaker. That was it. Not a backpack, not any other items of clothing, nothing. Nothing else was found ever. So, there were some important witness reports, but this white or gray vehicle could not be substantiated. And the reports of him near the park entrance was that he was talking to a young girl near the park entrance, but no one could identify the young girl. So, also strange, right? A very small neighborhood, but again, there are these random cars driving around his neighborhood and being detoured. Who knows if someone or someone's stopped at a park, wait for traffic to dissipate, wait for the fire to be put out. Who knows, right? So maybe it's not that unusual that nobody could identify the girl. Maybe she wasn't local and whoever she was traveling with, they just decided to hop out at the park and kill some time. And then, of course, there are always reports involving unidentified adult males. The police could not confirm any of those sightings. There were no descriptions. It was hard to say, but they're still part of the investigation. There are some sketches of some of these unidentified individuals that have been released over time. I did not look them up because it did not seem overly significant. And none of the reports that I looked at first even showed these sketches. So I'm not really sure how much credence they put into them. So this 11-year-old boy is watching a brush fire. Everyone sees him. Lots of people see him. Even people that don't know him can say, yeah, the little redheaded kid, he was here watching the fire. I'm sure the police saw him. I'm sure the firefighters saw him. So in this super, super narrow window of time, walking back to his own house in his own neighborhood, he didn't get lost, right? He didn't get lost. Something happens to him. And so let's say his mom figured she was gone 40 minutes. 40 minutes is not really a lot of time if you consider he had to walk over to where the fire was. He stayed while they dealt with the fire. So that could have taken, I don't know, could have taken 5 minutes, could have taken 30 minutes, right? So the window keeps narrowing, narrowing, narrowing. There are all these people around. He is not the only person watching this brush fire, right? He is definitely not the only one. No one sees him abducted, if that's what happened. So here are the theories. The leading law enforcement theory is that it was a stranger abduction. And again, back to the diverted traffic pattern, unfamiliar vehicles, maybe a very bad person just happened to be driving through, and it was an opportunistic abduction, um, which kind of seems likely. It seems like it could not have been planned, but more likely, like, hey, I'm a bad person. Oh, look, you know, they just crossed paths, unfortunately. And law enforcement seems to think that because only one shoe was found, that that suggests foul play. He was either like dragged or pulled, and one of his shoes fell off. He was not, taking his shoes off to go play in the bay or whatever. Um, Although the theory of accidental death is also on the table. So, very early on, the Delaware Bay and all of the marshes were searched extensively. Nothing was ever found. Seems super unlikely that that is what happened. Um, it was November at the New Jersey shore. It is not Florida. It is November. Nobody is going in the water in November, except respect to you polar bear plunge people who I believe they jump into the Atlantic Ocean in February for like a minute, not even. They jump in, they jump out. It's for charity. But not even a young, precocious, inquisitive 11-year-old boy is going to purposefully go into the Delaware Bay. No, that is highly unlikely. Um, and then the third theory is that um, known offenders, so not a stranger, opportunistic, but actually, you know, authorities checked on several child predators in the area. Remember, this is 1991. You can't just go on the internet and Google, this is where I live. How many registered sex offenders are there? That is not what was happening in 1991. But the local police knew who they knew, and they did look into it, and I bet they really, really, really wanted to make an arrest, but couldn't. So even that seems unlikely, because you would think after all this time, if they really had a local suspect, they would have figured out a way to get the evidence that they needed. So they have not, no suspect has ever been charged in this. So let's talk about these persons of interest. So they have looked apparently at many, many, many people, but only a few have been publicly discussed. One of whom, I should say, is Thomas Butkavage Jr. He is mentioned most frequently publicly. So they investigated him after information surfaced connecting him to allegations of abusing boys. One witness claimed that he had shown him a disturbing videotape that he said depicted Mark, and claimed responsibility for abducting him. But Cabbage denied those allegations. And despite really shaking that tree, they could never charge him. They did not charge him in Mark's disappearance. Later on, he was convicted of unrelated child sexual abuse offenses and remains incarcerated like the animal that he is on those convictions. Sorry, I know I'm going to get some blowback on that, but you know what? If you don't want me to call a child sexual predator an animal, I am not the channel for you. So, and even if you agree with me, we don't need this to become that in the public comments. I'm just saying. So law enforcement still wants anybody with any information to come forward. There have also been, like I said, sketches released of these unidentified males, and they've been described as persons investigators want to identify and interview, not necessarily as suspects, and their identities have never been publicly confirmed. So now back to the small gray / white car. They meaning the authorities, have never verified that this could be an actual sighting. They've never confirmed that it was legitimate. They've never said yes or no or anything about it. They just haven't. They've said nothing. So that was one witness. And again, could it be? Sure, it could be. But that's a needle in a haystack of needles, because so many unknown cars drove through. So you have that. You can't really place anybody exactly. Like, it could be somebody from a different state that was, for whatever reason, down the shore. I mean, even in November, people still do go to the Jersey Shore. So you don't even know where to look. Like, where do you even, you can't look locally. You can't assume that that car was someone local. No, because of the traffic situation, because of the road closures and the diversion of the traffic, we can't assume that that was a local somebody. So they have no way to look. Just playing devil's advocate for a minute. If I'm being diverted from my known path and there is no GPS to take me around, right? It may be a detour, but maybe it happened so fast that they didn't have time to put up detour signs. So I'm lost and I'm driving through this unknown neighborhood now that I didn't even want to be there. And I see a kid walking, I might roll down my window and say, how do I get back on Route 9 or whatever, right? I mean, that's legitimate, I think. And it could have been simply that. Somebody saying, hey, kid, because obviously if there is a child walking down the street, then you have to assume that they live locally. Because why else would a child be walking down the street if he didn't live locally? So that'd be a good person to ask. Like, how do I get back to Route 9? Or how do, whatever. So you can't just assume that the white or gray car was doing something nefarious. It could have just been someone who is geographically challenged, as I am, and probably back in the day would have done that, would have stopped and asked someone to direct me. So, also, another thing, abduction, known abductor, unknown abductor. The abduction theory is the big theory. Nobody really thinks he drowned, and no one thinks he ran away. So, there was no indication that he was running away. So that's not really on the table either. And again, the fact that one, not both. So he was either pulled out of it or dragged out of it. That seems to lend credence to the theory. So there are a few remaining mysteries about this. So the remaining mystery is, where is Mark Heimbaugh? What happened to him? And who did it? But one of the interesting mysteries was this. Was the brush fire intentionally set to create an opportunity for the abductor by bringing strangers into the neighborhood and most likely children out of their homes to go see? Was it intentionally set, or was it just the absolute positive worst case of luck in the universe that that one thing then triggered the next series of events leading up to um, Mark's disappearance, like road closures, detours, his mother not being able to get a simple 10-minute errand done and it taking 40 minutes. So that's an interesting one. And when I started researching this, I thought of that myself. Like, was that to draw people out? You know, was it to draw kids out? I don't know that an abductor, because I'm not going to give um, this horrible person the intellectual credit of saying, hey, if I set a brush fire right here, they're going to detour traffic around it, and then I'm going to have this really unique opportunity to do something. I feel like that's a lot of credit, right? I feel like that is a lot more credit than this animal deserves. That's what I think. But another question is there any forensic evidence that modern DNA technology, or modern any technology, can explore? Not so sure that's a mystery. I'm pretty darn sure that that would have been done given the opportunity, right? Like, you know, this is pretty high profile case. Pretty sure that every time advances were made in science and technology, people were like, ooh, the Mark Heimbach case. But it seems to me like nothing was there except the shoe. And unless they took it off his foot by touching it, what are the chances that there's going to be anything of his abductors on it? It's only going to be his DNA. So, case is open, remains open, and they keep saying that somebody probably knows something, and it seemed so insignificant that even with that coverage or that whatever, you know, the bigness of this case, they didn't understand what they were seeing. And that doesn't mean like, hey, yeah, I was standing there watching the brush fire and I don't know how I forgot, you know, that I saw this guy talking to this little redheaded boy. That's not it. But think about it. It could be somebody at a convenience store that saw something, or somebody came in acting a little funny, you know, like you don't know. And it doesn't necessarily mean you had to have seen Mark. It just means maybe you saw something. So anyway, the case remains significant because he was, if the abduction theory is true, he was abducted in daylight, middle of the day. He was well in view of multiple witnesses, including first responders, police, and firefighters, right there. It's a little brazen. You're gonna abduct a kid against his will, and you're gonna do it in front of the firefighters and policemen. I don't know. I just don't know. But it happened, right? So it happened. So let me know what you thought about this one, and if there is anything else that you would like me to add. Oh, one more thing. His mother, Maureen, continues to this day to advocate for her son and for pushing the authorities to continue to investigate to this day. And, you know, I'm sure it's something you don't get over. So good for you, Maureen, for continuing the fight. And you just don't ever know, right? You just don't ever know. And let me say this one more thing geographically. Um, so I explained the Jersey Shore and that little skinny, they're islands, they're little barrier islands, uh, bayside, oceanside. What I didn't tell you was very, 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 very close to our Jersey Shore are the Jersey Pine Barrens. Protected land, woods, 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 woods for miles upon miles upon miles upon miles upon miles. And that's kind of what is so scary, because if someone took him and disposed of his body in the Pine Barrens, we're never really going to know. We're just not. Um, and that's a scary thought, that he could have been there all these years, and I know that I'm not having this unique thought like, oh, Pine Barrens. I am sure that people had that thought. And here's another thing about you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that you might have something important. What if there were people walking in those woods? What if the Pine Barrens, I don't know. I don't know what people do in the Pine Barrens. I really don't. I mean, do you hunt? Do you fish? Do you do any of that? Do you camp? Do you do any of that in November? I don't know. I don't know. But if you do and you were there, then maybe you saw something that it just didn't click together. So anyway, this is very sad. I never ever like to talk about children going missing, and my heart goes out to him for the terror he must have felt, and for his family, the lifelong decades and decades search. And I hope someday in their lifetime there is closure for them. I hope they find out what happened, or at least can recover his remains. Um, I do not think that he is still alive, although they did do an age progression photo of him at some point, because people kept reporting that they were seeing him places. Unsubstantiated, you know, unsubstantiated. Little redheads kind of look like a lot of other little redheads, right? So, so I hope that his family gets closure one way or the other. And so, yeah, so let me know what you think. And if all goes well, you are seeing this at the end of my floss tube, um, which will have encompassed 2 months, because I did not do a floss tube in June, simply because I was working on 2 projects, and that would be boring to present to you guys. So I only did one floss tube, combining that boring month of only working on 2 projects to finishes, starts and finishes, and now whatever else the month of July has brought. So by the time you see this, I know I said today is July 7th, because it is. You probably won't see this closer to the end of July. Anything that you would like me to talk about, if you know of any cases and you want me to do a little bit of research, or you have comments, if you like, please like. If you really like, please subscribe. And I'm going to try and do this at the end of every floss tube. So in case you don't want to see anything but cross stitch, there is definitely a stop line where my floss tube ends and where this begins. But until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.